Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode three of Top Shelf Teachings, where if it's a good book, it's lit. We are working our way through The Great Gatsby, and thanks again for being part of the show here as we go along. It is a chilly 40 some degrees here in North Carolina. Hope it's nicer where you are, but you know what? It's late January, so what what do you expect in late January or mid January? So very cold here today. Has been warm over the weekend, but it's cold and dry at the moment. Um, Talking about drought conditions here in our part of the state, but there's some rain coming in the next few days that should put things right. We'll see. So enough of the pleasantries. We will get into the book here in just a second. I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, if you like the podcast, click like or subscribe. Um, Big shout out to Jackson Key from Isle of Wight Academy for being my first subscriber. So thanks, Jack. Hope everything's going all right for you out there in the world. Um, Questions, comments, concerns, feel free to drop me an email at topshelfteachings with an S at gmail.com. I'll be looking at those and keep an eye on the comments here for people who drop by. Last week we talked about Nick Carraway, the narrator of this book, of Fitzgerald's book um, of more than 100 years ago. Nick told us last week that he is non-judgmental. I wanted to see where we are with that. Drop a comment or an email or something and tell me if you're believing Nick in his non-judgmentalness. I think some more of that um, will be discussed here tonight with chapter 2. Also, we need to say a couple things about um, the big picture of the novel here. It was explained, or it was offered to us in a grad school course that I took on the American novel some years ago at Old Dominion University, that the novel is a commentary on the American dream. You know, this idea that each generation, if they're willing to work hard as their parents did, um, that the promises and benefits and the rights and responsibilities of being an American citizen here are guaranteed. Um, that if you work hard enough, that you're willing to do what needs done, that the benefits of being an American citizen uh, will be manifold or manifest to you. Now, um, as we go along, there'll be some more direct commentary on that. And so we'll just kind of throw that out there. Um, I guess it'd be a nice thing in the comments, drop me a line and tell me what the American dream means to you. And if your feelings about it have changed in recent years. Luckily enough, the aforementioned Jackson Key wrote in a research paper many years ago um, on this very subject. Um, he wrote a line where he said, they call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. I've always kind of enjoyed that line because I think the book does say some things about this idea of um, expending effort to make something real and then the achievement of that goal, turn out to be something different than what you thought it would be. Um, so we'll explore that as we go on. So drop me a line, let me know what you have to say or would like to say about that, and if it's changed in recent years. Chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby. Let's have a look. When we last left our friends, they were lounging about in Tom Buchanan and Daisy Buchanan's living room. Uh, the Buchanans and their friend Jordan Baker and Nick Carraway, who is Daisy's second cousin once removed. Um, so they resolve, or I should say Tom resolves, because Tom does a lot of pushing around and bullying and um, making sure that people are having a good time by enjoying the same things that he enjoys. And he's compelled Nick to visit the city with him the day after they had lunch together. So we launch into chapter 2 as they're on their way out. And I think this sheds some more light on Tom Buchanan's character, or what passes for character. Let's explore. He writes, about halfway between West Egg and New York, on the motor road, hastily joins the railroad and runs beside it for a quarter-mile, so as to shrink away from a certain desolate area of land. This is a valley of ashes, a fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and hills and grotesque gardens, where ashes take the form of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally, with the transcendent effort of men who move dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally a line of gray cars crawls along an invisible track, gives out a ghastly creak, and comes to rest, and immediately the ash-gray men swarm up with leaden spades and stir up an impenetrable cloud which screens their obscure operations from your sight. But above the gray land and the spasms of bleak dust which drift endlessly over it, you perceive, after a moment, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic. Their irises are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non-existent nose. Evidently some wild wag of an oculist set them there as to fatten his practice in the borough of Queens, and then sank down himself into eternal blindness, or forgot them and moved away. But his eyes, dimmed a little by many paintless days under the sun and rain, brood on over a solemn dumping ground. The Valley of Ashes is bound up on one side by a small, foul river. When the drawbridge is up to let barges through, the passengers on waiting trains can stare at the dismal scene for as long as half an hour. There's always a halt there of at least a minute, and it was because of this that I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. So another peek behind the curtain of Tom Buchanan. He has a woman in the city. So Nick is going to meet her shortly. I followed him over a low, whitewashed railroad fence, and we walked back 100 yards along the road under Dr. Eckelberg's persistent stare. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow brick sitting on the edge of the wasteland, a sort of compact main street ministering to it, and contiguous to absolutely nothing. One of the 3 shops contained was for rent, and the other was an all-night restaurant, approached by a trail of ashes. The third was a garage. Repairs. George B. Wilson. Cars bought and sold. And I followed Tom inside. This is where Tom is going to introduce Nick to his lady friend, whose name is Myrtle Wilson. She is the wife of George Wilson, the owner of the gas station. And they're going to be introduced. Now, I wanted to say a word about, going back a couple of paragraphs, this idea of the Valley of Ashes as a wasteland. We'll talk some going forward about um, The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, which was part of that literature class that I was telling you about back in grad school. Also, commentary on uh, the American dream or dreams in general, and we'll crack that egg as we go along. Suffice it to say, neither one ends well. So we'll get to that. So Tom wants Nick to meet Myrtle, and they meet. And so we also get a peek inside the apartment that Tom is keeping in the city for Myrtle and him. And they'll have invite some people over here, and we'll see what happens. I should tell you that the party scene is. Let me back up a little bit. The Great Gatsby novel has been adapted a number of times into a film. Um, there was a famous one in the 70s with Robert Redford. There was a Lifetime movie with um, an American actor called Toby Jones. Not that Toby Jones, but the other Toby Jones. The American Toby Jones. And there was a movie made recently. The most recent one is an adaptation starring Leonardo DiCaprio as The Great Gatsby. So I remember very well when the film first came out. I organized a field trip so that all of my classes and those of my neighbor at the school where I was teaching, we all went to. We were all going to go see the movie on opening day. So we got all our money together. We got our tickets bought. There were probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 students and two teachers, maybe a parent or two in there. And the film starts out promisingly enough. Um, More on that later because I have some definite feelings about that adaptation. Anyway, comes to this party scene, and I wasn't quite sure what to make of this. It's certainly not a big uh, production or anything scandalous happens. But in this adaptation, the most recent one, um, it, there's a pretty raucous party scene that happens inside this apartment, and people are dancing around on the bed, jumping around on bed as adults do. Um, anyway, that's what happens. Um, at some point, clothes starts being shed as they're dancing around on the bed, and I remember thinking, I'm sitting here looking around at all the kids around me and parents and my colleagues, and this is my idea, and I'm thinking, well, this is it. This is it. This is the end. Um, been nice to know you, everybody. Um, because I wasn't sure what happened in the film, after the clothes started falling. Anyway, turned out to be not a big deal. The segment didn't last very long, and everybody had a good time, and we all kind of went home after that. So they invite to this apartment that Tom has in the city. They invite a friend of Myrtle's and a painter and his wife who are neighbors, and they come up. And the descriptions of these characters are especially vivid and nice. So let's look at these. And I say nice in that they're vivid, not that the people are nice, because definitely they're not. Okay. Nick writes, I've been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was that afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy cast over it. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. Sitting on Tom's lap, Mrs. Wilson called up several people on the telephone. Then there were no cigarettes, and I had to go buy some at the drugstore on the corner. When I came back, they had disappeared, so I sat down discreetly in the living room and read a chapter of Simon Called Peter. Either it was terrible stuff or the whiskey distorted things because it didn't make any sense to me at all. Just as Tom and Myrtle, after the first drink, Miss Wilson and I called each other by our first names, reappeared, company commenced to arrive at the apartment door. The sister, Catherine, was a slender, worldly girl of about 30 and a solid, sticky bob of red hair and a complexion of powdered milky white. Her eyebrows had been plucked and then drawn on again at a more rakish angle, but the efforts of nature toward the restoration of the old alignment gave a blurred air to her face. Mr. McKee was a pale, feminine man from the flat below. He had just shaved, for there was a white spot of lather on his cheekbone, and he was most respectful in his greeting to everyone in the room. He informed me that he was in the artistic game, and I gathered later that he was a photographer and made a dim enlargement of Mrs. Wilson's mother, which hovered like an ectoplasm on the wall. His wife was shrill, languid, handsome, and horrible. She told me with pride that her husband had photographed her 127 times since they'd been married. Moving on, moving on. The guests at the party have a definite attitude about things. Later on, Mrs. McKee is talking to her husband about um, Catherine, the sister. Chester, I think you could do something with her, she broke out, but Mr. McKee only nodded in a bored way and turned his attention to Tom. I'd like to do more work on Long Island if I could get the entry. All I ask is that they give me a start. Ask Myrtle, said Tom, breaking into a short shout of laughter as Miss Wilson entered with a tray. She'll give you a letter of introduction, won't you, Myrtle? Do what? You'll give McKee a letter of introduction to your husband so he can get some studies of him. His lips moved silently for a moment as he invented George B. Wilson at the gasoline pump or something like that. Catherine leaned close to me and whispered in my ear, neither of them can stand the person they're married to. Can't they? Can't stand them. She looked at Myrtle and then at Tom. And what I say is, why go on living with them if they can't stand them? It was them. If I was them, I'd get a divorce and get married to each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either? The answer to this was unexpected, and it came from Myrtle, who had overheard the question and was violent and obscene. You see, cried Catherine triumphantly. She lowered her head again. It's really his wife that is keeping them apart. She's a Catholic, and they don't believe in divorce. Daisy was not a Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the lie. When they do get married, continued Catherine, they're going to go west and live for a while until it blows over. It'd be more discreet to go to Europe. Oh, do you like Europe? She said surprisingly. I just got back from Monte Carlo. Really? Just last year I went over there with another girl. Did you stay long? No, we just went to Monte Carlo and back. Went by way of Marseille. We had over $1,200, and then when we started, but we got gypped out of it all in 2 days in the private rooms. We had an awful time getting back, I can tell you that. God, how I hated that town. Um, Myrtle goes on to talk about her meeting with Tom. Um, and out of this cloud of confusion with the drinking and whatnot, um, erupts an argument between Myrtle Wilson and Tom. Again, we know that he has laid hands on his wife, and come to find out that the mistress, Myrtle Wilson, is no different. She does the thing that Tom can't stand, which is, mimics him um, in the way he says his wife's name. Tom has said to her, don't say her name anymore. Keep her name out your mouth. And she, of course, refuses. Says it 3 times, 4 times, 4.5 times, and Tom swings his hand at her and breaks her nose with an open hand. So he's really going for husband of the year on this point. There is blood everywhere. They're trying to get the blood off the floor. McKee and everybody sort of leave the party, and Nick wakes up. Well, let's see. He kind of comes to once. He is sitting on McKee's bed in his underwear and looking at his photographs. A second later, or what seems like a second, he's wakes up in the train station in New York, waiting for the 4 o'clock train. Um, so I guess now is as good a time as any to ask the question that students have asked periodically, mistakenly, I might add. But the question is asked just the same. Is Nick a gay man? I don't think so. But here he is, waking up in bed in his underwear with another man. In chapter 1, he describes his admiration for Gatsby. Says that there was something beautiful about him. Um, and around this time, I usually say, no, it doesn't make him gay. Fitzgerald's word choice, I don't know. It tweaks some people, raises a flag of some color. Um, you be the judge. Drop me a comment. Drop me an email and tell me what you think. Overblown or not. Anyway, so Nick wakes up in the train station, and that is where we find chapter 3. In which we will hear some descriptions of Gatsby's house and the parties that go on there. And I think you'll agree that it's, writing at its finest. So we'll get into that next week. Chapter 3 next week, next Monday, which will be Martin Luther King Day, the 19th. And let's see what you think about Chapter 3. So that's all I had for this evening. Thanks for all of you who joined our live stream here, or were joining in the future. I wanted to say I had planned to do another live drop in last week. That didn't come to pass, but I would like to do another one this week, in which we will talk about more Fitzgerald, specifically the Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Had a chance to watch that for the first time here last week, and it's very odd. So we'll talk about the story. We'll talk about Fitzgerald's part in it, which, as it turns out, is not very much, and the way it's described. We'll get into that next week, or this week, later on as we go forward. So that's it. Be well, and click like or subscribe. We'll talk to you soon. That will be next week. So take care, everybody, and enjoy your week. Stay warm out.